Front Porch Conversations here at Advent Christian Village, and we're on the front porch of the Copeland Community Center on this summer day. I want to introduce you to our guests today, Ben and Lorraine Bowen. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. And
Glad
Lorraine,
to be here.
Both. Our viewers want to know more about you. So would you begin by saying where you were born and where you grew up?
Right, okay, I'll go first. I was actually born in India, raised in England, and I came here in 1990 when I married Ben.
And I was born in Ohio, southern Ohio, and stayed there through college and traveled to California and then came to Florida. So I've been here since 1969. So.
Did a job bring you to Florida, or did you just come to Florida wanting to live
My
here?
aunt and uncle was here, and I had visited them a number of times. And I said, well, this is a nice place. I think I'll just move here. So I got a job with the state of Florida, and I had reason to stay.
Good. Lorraine, you were born in India.
Right.
How did you come to be born in India?
My father was in the army and he died when I was 1.
Oh.
But we went to a military boarding school in India. So my mother had a choice for us to go on there and then come when I finished school. So my brothers came back to England first as they finished. Then I came.
So you've had a very international upbringing in life, right?
I have, and right at this moment, my son lives in Australia, my daughter lives in England still, and all my other family. Mm-hmm. And so I get to go there. But of course, I haven't been recently.
I know this is hard for you this time.
Oh,
because you're usually away in the summer, aren't you?
I am. But that's all right.
That's all right. What would you describe as some of your childhood favorite memories?
You know, Anne, I have got so many. Oh, so many. I couldn't even begin to tell you. But I would like to tell you how Ben and I met. Is that all right?
That's absolutely great.
Okay. I was a widow, and this was 87. And Ben, of course, was single, living in Florida. And we both attended the same church. It was the Worldwide Church of God. Mm-hmm. He here and I there. And he came over for the Feast of Tabernacles. And of course, I was one of the hosts, being in England. So I met him there. And do you know, it was love at first sight. And he came back, and a week later, you know, we were writing to each other in the meantime. He asked me to marry him. I came over, and our first kiss was on our wedding day.
Oh.
And that's 30 years yesterday.
Well, happy 30th anniversary.
Yes.
Well, now, one of the things I've done on these conversations, when one person in the couple says how they met, I always ask the other person if that's how they saw it too.
That's how I saw it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
it was a God thing,
mm-hmm.
You know, through the church, and we've stayed in the church, and that's our main tie, you know,
mm-hmm.
being of like mind.
Right.
Oh, it's wonderful. Wonderful to be able to talk to your spouse any time of the day. You know, you get a little thought about the Lord, and you're able to I stop him a lot.
I wanted to go back one more minute to England. Where did you live primarily in England?
In England, we lived in the county of Surrey, which is down south of London. And lastly, I lived in Chichester, because I moved around a lot, so many years.
Uh-huh.
I didn't come here till I was 50. So that was only 2 years ago.
And did you have, you did, you had brothers. Did you have sister?
2 brothers, no sisters, yes. They still live in England with their families. And of course, my daughter lives there and my grandsons. And a lot of people here know young Marcus because
I've met Marcus.
He used to come every summer. Well, he's his last year in college. So, and they both are last years. Dominic is doing law and Marcus is doing marine science. So it's been wonderful, wonderful. And before I go any further, I just want to say how wonderful this village is. Not just the residents and the people, but the staff, and especially Craig and his administration. You know, we all have our problems, but my goodness, I have to just give my hat off to him.
Absolutely.
For keeping this all in one piece.
Ben, what about you? Do you have siblings?
I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. One sister's passed, but and we're a close family. We stay in communication with each other, and they're in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So I've been trying to get one of my brothers to move down here because he's got 2 daughters that live in Florida, and I said, well, you know, you wouldn't be that far away from them, but haven't been able to get him here yet. So.
What about childhood memories for you that are special?
Well, I always had a mechanical interest in things, and you know, I had an electric train, and I played with that when I was very young, and then someone gave me an alarm clock, and I took it apart and was absolutely fascinated with the gearing in it, and so I've always had a love for antique clocks, and after college, and particularly after I moved to Tallahassee, I contacted a jeweler there who was sympathetic to my interest, and so I wore him out to learning how to do things and how to repair antique clocks. So that was really my, you know, childhood interest that turned into more of a hobby. So.
And I would say from being in your home in your clock room or clock suite, I'm not sure which to call it, you have certainly kept that interest up.
Yeah, I do a lot of clock repair for people, and you know, it's not work. It's something I love to do. So it's you know, it's a hobby turned into a small business. So
He's going to retire someday.
Oh, what's the hurry?
yeah, right.
Oh.
Ben, you said you came to work for the state of Florida once you moved here. What did you do?
I studied chemistry in college, and so I worked for the Department of Agriculture as a chemist, and stayed there really in the same division for 30 years and until I retired. So I was in the section on petroleum products. So we had a variety of tests that we ran on petroleum to make sure it wasn't contaminated, and as it sometimes did and would happen, and like trucks would drop the wrong kinds of fuel in tanks and diesel and gas and vice versa. So we did testing for those kinds of things and
Statewide, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Your job.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you were not just in Tallahassee; you were all over the state.
Well, I was in charge of 6 laboratories around the state, and but I was based in Tallahassee. So. But the interesting thing is, you know, getting back to the clocks just a little bit, which kind of got me into knowing about the Lord, because one of the jeweler that I mentioned to you that I was interested in, he would, whenever I went to visit him, he'd always talk about the Bible, and you know, I went to church when I was a youngster, but not during college, and so he would say some things, and I thought, I don't think I've ever heard that before. And I'd go home and open the Bible. Yeah, sure enough, there it was, you know. So it kind of piqued my interest, and you know, I said one day, Lord, if you can help me, here I am. So it kind of grew from there. So.
And it's been a good walk since then.
It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful, and I met Lorraine because of, you know, through the Lord, and we've had a wonderful marriage too. So.
Yeah.
Well, Lorraine, in England, did you work outside the home?
Yes, I did.
What did you
Well, I
do?
worked all the time. I was the manager of a building society, which is like a credit union.
Oh, okay.
So I was always in finance. But strangely enough, when I came to England, I brought that with me, and I worked in 2 small nursing homes, and so I got a variety of experience. And then I eventually ended up at Westminster Oaks as the business office manager there.
And for our viewers, that's a retirement community, large retirement community in Tallahassee.
That's right. Beautiful place.
It is. It really is. What made you both think about the village, or were you just? Did you do lots of research about where you're going?
Interesting, Anne. Do you want to tell Anne?
Lorraine's boss was
Sandy Hug.
Sandy Hug was at Westminster Oaks in Tallahassee, and she came here as a assistant administrator.
Yeah.
And so she invited us down one time just
It was Josh. We came because of
That's
Josh.
right, yeah.
Yes.
We have some friends that live across the river who had a son, 19 years old, and had not finished school and had never had a job. Loved to play on the computer. And we said, well, we'll see if we can get him a job. So we came down and talked to the administrator here, and
To Sandy.
and we got him a job in the Copeland Community Kitchen. And he's still there today. And
Yes.
That's
Josh Swinson.
At the Good Samaritan Center, or
Good Samaritan.
Good Samaritan Center?
yeah.
And gosh, how long ago was that?
Yeah, it was right
About
after we
15
moved here.
years.
Or was it just before
Yes,
we
it was
moved here?
before we moved.
And anyway, we had a little tour of the village, and I said, well, this is not a bad place, you know. I wouldn't mind living here. So we looked at a couple of lots and a couple of houses and decided on the one that we are in, and Jim helped us to build a house, and we had a small farm up in Jefferson County, and in the process sold it and moved down here. So
The wonderful thing, Anne, is when we moved here, our lives didn't change. It was just added to, because that's what I was afraid of. I was afraid this is the end of the line. And but Ben just had this wonderful workshop built along with the house, and we've never looked back. Never looked back. It's been a wonderful, wonderful 14 years.
Well, you built a lovely home as well in Riverwoods.
Thank you.
thank you.
And a yard, a wonderful yard.
I was only going to say that soon. And we know who the gardener is,
That's
right?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
All the plants would have died if it was Ben.
Well, all the clocks might not have been ticking if it was your responsibility. Is that right?
That's true. That's true.
But I think you told me at one point you've learned a good bit about clocks too.
Oh, yes. Yes, I did take a course in clockwork, clock repair. So, you need a lot of patience and a lot of strength, which I don't have anymore.
What's been interesting with the virus going around, and we haven't been able to get out and do things, I've been working on a lot of clocks that I've collected over the years, and at one point I had them all lined up on the table, the ones I had repaired and got going, after they'd been sitting on the shelf for a number of years. So I've made a lot of progress on my inventory.
It's been good for us in a way. It really has.
And tell us a little bit about your other part of your business, the domes. Are you still doing
domes?
those?
I had repaired a antique clock for a lady in Tallahassee, and she said, well, I think that...
Excuse me interrupting, but this goes back to when we met.
Yeah, it goes
Yes.
back, before we were married.
Yes.
Anyway, this woman said it used to have a glass dome over it, and can you find me a glass dome to go over my clock? Well, at that time, I had met Lorraine, but she was still in England, and I called her and I said, is there any chance that there's any glass dome people around you? And she called me back. She said, yeah, there's a glass dome company about 45 minutes away from where I live. So I made a trip over to England, and we went by, and I picked out the glass dome, and I hand carried it back on the airplane.
And these are not little domes.
No, this is a very large dome. It's an oval dome, very big. So, which was kind of interesting by itself, because, when you're carrying something fragile like that you kind of stand out, And so the security people say, come here, I want to see what's in your box, And so anyway, I brought the dome home and put it on the clock for the lady, and discovered that, you know, it had paid part of my, if not all of my airplane ticket, you know. So it wasn't too long after that I had gone back to England to see Lorraine again, and I said, let's go by, I'll get some domes. So I went by and got 3 domes, one small, one bigger and bigger, and we fit one inside the other. And again, I hand carried them back on the plane, and sold those very quickly. And
By this time we were married.
and then
By the 3rd dome.
yeah. And then the next trip over, the person I was buying from gave me a box with the manufacturer's name on it.
Bad choice.
So I called them and I said, "Can I buy from you direct?" "Sure, yeah, you can buy." And so I started importing at that point, you know, bringing many together. And so again, that's been something that's gone on for as long as we've been married, you know. And so I have an internet connection, and people order online, and so it's.
And I've seen you many a time carrying boxes of domes into the post office.
Almost every day.
Every day.
Almost every day. So through Amazon and eBay and the internet site. So and again, it's been a fun thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not work. So.
What do you think the oldest clock you've ever restored was?
Back, I guess the early 1800s, with wooden works, wooden gears.
Oh my goodness.
And wooden plates, as they call it. And so those are always interesting. I'm working on an interesting one right now. It's a 1906 clock, and it has a little DC motor on the top that makes the chime work. And none of my friends have ever seen one like it, you know. And so it's been a kind of a fun project. I'm working on a grandfather clock right now that is called a grand sonnery chime, and it strikes the number of quarter hours each 15 minutes and the number of hours. So it might strike 2 times on one note and 2 times on another note, means the second quarter past 2 o'clock. So if you hear it strike, you know exactly what time it is. So that's kind of an interesting
It helps
clock.
blind people to know.
I
It's
can
called
imagine.
a blind man's clock, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lorraine, what is your favorite part of gardening? What do you like to grow the best?
Oh, flowers.
I mean, you thought it wasn't cucumbers.
And you know what? I feed the deer. So I'm doing charity. No, I just love everything about gardening. I'm not keen on vegetables because to me, you've got to have a lot of patience, because by the time you put fertilizer and insect spray and whatever else becomes too expensive, Publix has got it right.
You've got a $5 tomato.
No, I enjoy I just like the beauty of it, you know. I talk to my plants too.
I'm a little worried. I'm a little jealous because she goes out and talks to her plants. So.
Oh, well.
When we were talking earlier, you were talking about the village, and you talked about your admiration for Craig and management staff. What else is important to you about the village?
That we can volunteer. Oh, and I can't tell you, I think, now everybody's different. Everybody's different. But I like to feel needed, actually. Needed and useful. And when you volunteer somewhere, it's such a wonderful feeling. In fact, I was saying to Ben, we just got a map of our area, and I know almost everybody there. You know, it's a wonderful feeling. This village lifts you up. If you're down, you've just got to go out. I know these are hard times at the moment, but even in these hard times, we try to keep the library open. And, of course, we've got a beautiful library there. You're never lonely.
No.
You're never lonely. And people who live in the apartment buildings, they don't have to walk out. They can just walk into the public areas, even if they don't want to talk to anyone. There's always people there.
And that human contact is so important.
It's so important. So important.
You were telling me about an experience when the rustic shop was open, or was it Riverside Gifts, where you were volunteering and you recognized somebody who was a fairly new member?
Now there's two members who we already knew here. First of all, Joe England.
Yes.
Well, Ben repaired her clocks in Tallahassee. So when he came...
Long before we met.
Yes, long before we met.
And did you know she was living here when y'all
No.
came?
No.
That was a real shock, and right down at the end of our street. Too.
Yes, yes. And then I was working at Riverside Gifts, and this lady came in, and she said, "I know you from somewhere." And I said, "Well, I know you too." And, I started saying where I was from.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I said Westminster Oaks, she knew because she used to work at Westminster Oaks. Then she moved to being the administrator in Tallahassee Convalescent Home, and she hired me as the bookkeeper.
Oh.
That was way back.
Yeah.
And it must have been 20-something years.
And tell our viewers who that is.
Pardon?
And who is she?
Sandy Kelly.
Sandy Kelly and her husband.
Yes.
We had a front porch
Herschel.
Conversation. Yes, Herschel.
Yes.
About a month and a half ago.
Well, I did see it.
Did you?
I
Good.
did. Yes. Yes.
And are those the only people you've known previously that live here?
Sandy Daniels we used to know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sandy Daniels.
yeah. She had a flower shop in Tallahassee.
And you used to repair clocks for a lady. We actually came here.
Yeah, Bess Lux.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So I had repaired her grandfather clock many years ago. So, but speaking of the village shops, one thing that I do try to help members here is I put batteries in watches and things, and so of course that's not happening so much right now with the virus and the shops closed.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing is that I get requests for all kinds of things. Can you fix my necklace? Well, my lamp needs rewired, so it's turned into a kind of a handyman kind of thing, which I love doing, so happy to
Maybe
do.
after viewing this, you'll get a lot more
I
calls.
might.
That's his little ministry doing that. And I mean, we've really raised thousands just doing that, just $5.
Mm-hmm.
So to anybody out there who's feeling lonely, as soon as we get back, go out and look for something. There are so many jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Because I volunteered at Copeland too. And, you meet everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You meet so many people.
And they're great people to meet here.
Absolutely.
And with lots of great stories. And that's why I enjoy doing these conversations, so that somebody watching may say, well, I know a little bit about clocks, or I've interviewed 2 members who were missionaries in India. So there's another tie for you.
I know them. Was it the Caseys?
The Caseys, and
Yes.
also Barbara White.
Yes. Now, I know Barbara White, but I haven't actually met with her. But I have with the Caseys. I sort of got to know them well because of that.
Uh-huh.
And we shared all their albums. Because it's amazing, all the things somebody else has been there too.
Right.
So, yes, I've enjoyed it.
When how soon after the pandemic is lifted are you going to be on a plane to
The next day.
Is this the longest you've not seen your family?
Yes.
Since you've lived in the United States?
Yes, it was usually twice a year. But it doesn't matter. I see them on FaceTime all the time.
Every day.
Yes. My grandson calls me every day.
That has been a wonderful opportunity. I feel like I've seen we did it a lot before this, but I'm seeing my grandchildren grow up electronically. But I did get to see them this summer.
Yes, yes. So, yeah, we've enjoyed that. And as I say, I speak to them every day. So,
Other than getting on an airplane and going to England, are there things on your bucket list that either of you'd like to do that you've...
I want to go skiing again. I said I've got to go skiing one more time before I die.
find me someone.
I'm desperate to go skiing. So.
Snow skiing, right?
Yeah, snow skiing. Yes.
Is it downhill or
downhill? We've gone to Colorado to Breckenridge a number of times, and I just love to do it. And so maybe I'll find someone in the village that's looking for a partner. We can go.
Because Lorraine, you're not signing up.
Oh, no. No, I've given him a telephone with 911 on it. You call. Don't call me.
Any other?
I'm scared, Anne, I don't. And besides, I had a car wreck in 2008.
I remember that.
Yes, and that was really bad. And it healed on its own, miracle of miracles. I was 69, and I couldn't believe, the doctors couldn't believe I'd healed. So, again.
Thank God you did.
Somebody watching over us all the time.
What advice would you all give, both of you, to a young person today? A family member or just a young person in general?
Come to know the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's the one thing in my whole life I regret. I didn't come to know the Lord till I was 50. But, the joy I live in, the joy and the pleasure, and it's not happiness, it's joy. Mm-hmm. And I don't worry about anything, Anne. I really don't.
And the other thing,
been making you go snow skiing, right?
I'm not even worried about that.
Because you're not going.
And the other thing is to get a good education, And,
yes.
From day one, we've kind of hammered that into our grandchildren,
And
get
they
a good
both
education.
stuck to their education.
It doesn't have to be college, but it needs to be, a trade
Whatever
or something.
yes.
Right.
Prepare for life, We have family members that haven't prepared for life, and they're living on Social Security, and, it's rough,
Well, that's all right. That's all right, too, especially here.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for coming and sitting down today. And I bet if somebody wants to know where you live, they just look for a clock outside on a pole,
That's
right?
That's right, yeah.
Well, thank you for having us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you all both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today, and look forward to having you tune in at future episodes of Front Porch Conversations.